Nation Choice Award 100 Top Educators, Young Author of the Year 2020, Youth Leader Award और करमवीर चक्र अवार्ड जैसे कई अवार्ड से सम्मानित श्री यश तिवारी जी मेंटरशिप, पब्लिक स्पीकिंग और ट्रेनिंग के क्षेत्र में एक जाना माना नाम है। ग्लोबली रिनाउंड प्लेटफॉर्म टेडएक्स पर टेड टॉक और जोश टॉक्स डिलीवर कर चुके श्री यश तिवारी जी मेंटल हेल्थ एडवोकेट और मोटिवेशनल गाइड के रूप में भी प्रसिद्ध हैं। ब्लिस्टर्स ऑफ द बैटल, अ सेलिब्रेशन इन ट्रिब्यूलेशन और पैंडेमिक 2020 राइफ ऑफ द वायरस जैसी बेस्ट सेलर्स के ऑथर श्री यश तिवारी जी ने विजन और पैशन से अपनी अलग और खास पहचान बनाई है। देश विदेश में अपनी प्रतिभा से सभी को प्रभावित कर चुके श्री यश तिवारी जी इंटरनेशनल रिकॉर्ड होल्डर के अलावा इंटरनेशनल रेडियो होस्ट के तौर पर भी लोकप्रिय हैं। ग्लोबल यूथ मेंटर और सॉफ्ट स्किल ट्रेनर श्री यश तिवारी जी का बिजनेस पाठशाला में एक्सपर्ट के तौर पर हम स्वागत करते हैं।
Hi there, this is Yash Tiwari, a global youth mentor and international award-winning public speaker and also a best-selling author of many books. In this session, we are going to be talking about the topic as presented on the screen right now, the product development strategy. Now, if you are an aspiring entrepreneur, if you are a business person, if you are anybody who is remotely associated with businesses, startups, and entrepreneurship, this might be something that you are relatively familiar with. And if not, it might be something that you need to be very much familiar with. As a matter of fact, this is what you need to be aware of in its entirety. What it means, how to work on it, how to strategize it, and how to manifest it. The product development strategy. The product development strategy comprises of 3 words. Now, these 3 words are going to be the pillars based on which the foundation of your entire startup, your brand, your company, and even of your own self as an entrepreneur, a business person, is supposed to be raised. Now, how does that all work out? We will talk about it in just a moment. But in the initial phase of the session today, the one thing that I want all of you to be clear about is a customer hops on to check out your website, they visit your store, or they might reach out to you because they want to avail the products, because they want to check out the services that you are offering. Yes, absolutely. Brand image plays a huge role. Brand image might be a huge driver for somebody to check out your platform, even if it doesn't, let's say, produce any products or deliver any services that they individually need. But even then, after they are checking out your website or they are visiting your store, how do you make sure that they actually become a customer of yours and not just a visitor? That translation from having a visitor become a customer of your brand, or a visitor becoming a customer of your store, or a visitor becoming a customer of your website, it happens based on what the products are that you are offering. Now, products play a very huge role, especially in the overall growth and expansion of a startup as well, and these might even be very daunting to tackle as well, because initially you can begin with one product, eventually you expand to 100 products at the very least. I'm just stating very hypothetically over here. The case might be relatively smaller, where you are going from one product to even just 10 products in the first few years, which is fine. It is not about how many products you are launching. It is about how are you strategizing the development of each of those products. Who knows? Maybe there might be a brand that has 100 something product, but it is your startup with only 5 good products that have been developed with a great strategy that are earning, loads and loads more in comparison. The point to be noted over here is, for a visitor to become a customer of your platform, the products need to be developed with a great strategy. And then secondly, even for the overall growth of the platform, your startup, your company, your brand, your corporation, your organization, whatever sort of an entity you are leading as an aspiring entrepreneur, the growth of it, the expansion of it, it depends hugely on what kind of a strategy you are basically taking care of all the functions of your platform, especially, and more importantly, the development of the products that you're coming up with. Now, let us talk about this product development strategy, or what does it even mean in actuality for any aspiring entrepreneur or any person who is remotely associated with or interested with the world of business, startup, and entrepreneurship. So, as I told you, in the word product development strategy, in this entire term, product development strategy, there are three words. There is the product, then there is the development, then there is the strategy. Let us try to decipher these three words first of all, in order to introduce what product development strategy is supposed to really look like for a startup. Let us decipher these three words. Firstly, you have the term product. What is a product? Or should I ask, how is a product supposed to be? A relatively simple question, but requires an actually sharp mind to think about it. Because you need to develop a product that is not just unique, it is even needed in the market. You are creating something that is different, that is very distinctive in comparison to the other products, which is fine, it is great, it is needed. But is the product needed in the market or not? That is what you also have to begin your thought process with. Whenever you are idealizing a product, whenever you are, let's say, conceptualizing a certain product or a service or a good or something to be launched in the market through your platform, or even prototyping it for the very first time, begin with a simple question. Why? Why are you thinking of this product? Why are you thinking of this specific entity that you want to invest a huge buck on, that you want to definitely invest a great deal of time on, that you want to ask your team members, everybody in your platform, and even external investors and fundings put their time and money in the development of this product as well? Why? Why is this product important enough or necessary enough or needed enough to be launched in the market? It is a simple question, I know, but the answer is something that most of the aspiring entrepreneurs either struggle to find, or it is something that they entirely overlook, which eventually, by the way, leads them to generate a product that might be unique but is not even needed in the market in the first place, which is problematic. Uniqueness should be there, distinction should be there, with an actual relevance, with a need, with a necessity. You need to generate a product that is different than the competitors that you have in the market, but you need to generate it or develop it with an idea in your mind that why is it needed in the market? Why is this product needed to be a bit different than it is in the market right now? If there is a locality where there are a lot of pizza stores, and you have visited all those pizza stores, and then you sit down with yourself and you decide that you want to start a store of your own. You want to kickstart a store of your own, and the product would be of pizzas, which is great. But then the actual reason why you are starting up that store in that specific locality where 20 something pizza stores already exist is not just because you want to be one amongst them and earn a buck. You want to start that pizza store because when you visited all the others, you were able to note down what were their shortcomings, what still needs to be improved upon, how you can cook a pizza that is much better than all the others that are available in the market right now, and why is it needed by the consumers out there as well, the customers out there as well. So that's sort of a questioning which you do even of your own product, even of your own concept in regards to why you are working on this product is essential. So the first term in this product development strategy is that of the product itself. coming up with the product that really matters. Secondly, you have the term of the development. Once again, a basic term. You think of an idea, you think of product, you start developing it. But it is not that easy. I'm not talking about how you strategize the development right now. I am just talking about the development in its own, on its own, as a singular entity, as a singular process. I am talking about how much it requires beyond your general perception of how easy could it be to develop a product. I mean, once you come up with a great topic, or once you come up with a great, let's say, product or a service in your mind, and you pitch it to investors, it would be easier to, just develop it right away, right? Absolutely wrong. Because the development of a product depends on so many factors, and as a matter of fact, so many processes as well. Development in its own is one process, but it requires so many other processes to actually work out for your product and for your brand and for your platform. Now, after that, of course, comes the point of the strategy, which is about strategizing how exactly are you going to do it. What is going to be your plan? How are you going to get the investors? How are you going to do the marketing? What is going to be the prototyping process exactly? How do you get the customers for it? How do you get the feedbacks for whatever sort of a product you are willing to develop, or even pitch it to the people that you want to collaborate with? Whatever the various processes might be in the developmental stage, how are they going to materialize? How do you plan to materialize all those processes is what the strategy of the product development is needed to look like. And this strategy should always be very effective and efficient. And how do you work on it is something that, of course, in the session ahead, I will be guiding and mentoring you about. So on a very introductory level, of course, you must have understood by now that the product development strategy sounds something that you are familiar with or that should be easy to tackle, but in reality, it is much more than that. There is so much gravity in it, there is so much depth in it, and more importantly, there are so many things involved, there are so many processes involved in the basic developmental strategy of a singular product that you need to work a lot out. You need to figure a lot out. How do you do that is what, of course, we are going to be talking about in the session ahead today. But the one thing that I want you to emphasize on, that I want you to focus on is this. For the startups, here we are talking about something which is specifically very beneficial for the startups that are out there with a singular definition in our mind. The singular definition that startups do not function on the same playground or in the same sandbox that the well established companies or the renowned companies of the past might be there in for a very, very long time, or might have been playing in for a very long time. Startups function on a sort of a different dimension, because startups are primarily about innovation. Every platform has to innovate. It goes without saying. Every company has to keep on innovating, with leaps and bounds with the time that processes. But then startups are genuinely and entirely about innovation to a great degree. They are about fulfilling the needs of the consumers with the modern processes in the modern times based on the modern products entirely and wholly. So this modernization, which plays a huge role in the startup culture that we have in the present tense in our country, of course, which is blooming at a rapid stage, but even globally, the modernized culture of the startups on a global level as well in the globalized world of today, to a huge degree, directs how the product development strategy is supposed to be. Because there can be a product development strategy differently established for a platform that has been existing for, let's say, 50 years, which has a great consumer base of millions upon billions around the world, versus a platform that has just started in your locality and hardly has like 100 consumers checking out the product even every week. So there will be a huge contrast, a huge distinction between the product development strategy across the various avenues of entrepreneurship, businesses, and even products for that matter. And as a matter of fact, even different products can be developed in different manners too. But then, beyond the distinctions, beyond the differences, on a very basic level, on a fundamental level, what is the foundation exactly? What are the pillars based on which a product is supposed to be developed? That remains unanimously same. I'm not even saying similar. I am saying remains same across all the avenues, which is what we are going to be covering in the session today as well, to help you in understanding how that product development strategy should really look like for your platforms. When we are talking about the process of the product development, the strategy of the product development, various things have to be worked out. Various, we can say, elements, various aspects associated closely, not just with the product, but with the startup itself. Because everything that you do in terms of a singular product impacts the entire startup. If your startup has, let's say, 10 products, or let's say it has 9 products, and the 10th one you are about to launch, the 10th one you are conceptualizing right now, and your startup is doing relatively fine, but the 10th product that you strategize, that you develop, it comes out in such a revolutionary manner, it comes out so interestingly, it is presented to the audiences and the customers in such a wonderful manner, and it is so much needed, it is so very much required by the audiences as well, that what will happen is, the 9 products which you have been working on so far, they might have been doing fine, but this 10th product, it will get your sales up to the charts, beyond the charts. It will generate consumers for you, generate customers for you beyond your wildest of imaginations. Why? Because that singular product that you developed impacts the entire brand. So don't ever think that just because there is a certain set number of products that already exist, the other one is also supposed to be exactly on the same plane. It can be better. It can be far more revolutionary. It can be far more interesting. It can be far more impacting. It can be far more needed by the consumers out there. My point basically is, value every single product as if that is the focus of your company. Value every single service as if that is the focus of your startup. Don't just put all of the products in the same category. Bifurcate them, at least in your own mind during the ideation stage, that each of them have a relevance on their own. Together, all of these products might be wonderful for your entire platform, but even individually, they are so much viable, they are so much valuable, that you need to and you want to develop them with the greatest of strategy, which is what the process of product development or the strategy of product development also refers to. Now, there are various processes and various elements that are involved in the entire process of the product development strategy. So let us talk about them one by one in a sequence. Firstly, you have the point of developing an idea, which goes without saying that it all begins with an idea. Now, this idea can make or break not just the product, but even the entire startup as a whole. Because like I said, every single product plays a huge role. So when you are saying that every single product plays a huge role, it also means that even the idea of every single product eventually plays a huge role for the entire startup. So developing an idea that actually is valuable for your platform is really very important. Developing an idea for your product or whatever sort of a new service you are coming up in the market that you think will be more needed, or you have researched the market segments and you know that it will be genuinely needed by the consumers, they need it, they will have a sort of attention towards it, is required to be worked upon with a great deal of focus. But after developing a good idea, after developing a great concept for the product that you want to come up with, the next big thing to work upon is the viability, the validity, the necessity of the product in the market. This is where you are focusing more on the people whom you are catering to, rather than just your own self or your own team or your own startup. This is where you need to, actually look beyond the boundaries of your own startup and think of the consumers more importantly than anything else. This is where you are trying to figure out if the consumers actually validate the process, the product, the services that you have in mind that you are conceptualizing or not. You have to figure out that even if you are coming up with a revolutionary flavor of pizza as we were talking about the same analogy earlier in the session today, is it something that the consumers out there would actually validate, or is it something that would simply irk them? Yes, at times you launch something and it is only after the customers check it out, or majority of the customers check it out, and they are able to consider the validity of it or the importance of it. But more often you have to figure out the validity beforehand, before you even start, let's say, prototyping or any other business plan that you come up with for that product, or even the marketing strategy that in the longer run you will have to generate. Before anything, before you even generate that first prototype, research from your peers, research from the consumer base, research from the various segments, research from different regionalities, localities, territories, research amongst your competitors, research what is working and what is not, what can work and what might not, and based on the same, based on the research that you do, generate a sense of validity corresponding to your research results for the product that you're coming up with. It is not the fact that if you see that there is a concept that you come up with, there is not much validity which you are able to presently find right now in the market based on the research that you have conducted. So you just suddenly slash the idea off. It is not that point. The point is you are figuring out that, okay, if this concept in this attire is not suitable enough for the consumers right now, what other sort of attire you can give it? What other sort of representation you can give the product that you are thinking of? It is important to think of modification or flexibility as a positive force of growth for your startup, and even for the individual products that you're coming up with, rather than something that is difficult to tackle. Now, after you talk about researching the validity and basically modifying your product or the concept of the product accordingly, the next big thing to work upon is to conceptualize the process itself. Now, while conceptualizing the process, we are basically talking about all of the following things, but on a very conceptual level. This is where you will be doing all of it. This is where you will be thinking about all of it. This is where you will be materializing. This is where you will be ideating. You have to begin from a space of an idea, begin from a space of a psychological concept about whatever you want to, let's say, commit to or invest it in the physical, get the investments or the capitals. How are you going to assure proper marketing of the product? How are you going to assure that the consumers actually check it out in the longer run as well? How do you sustain the validity of that product, and much more? These are the things that need to be conceptualized beforehand. Before you start working on the actual process, you need to conceptualize the process. Before you actually start working with the policies that you're coming up with for a singular product, and it is already even out in the market, you need to think of what those policies are supposed to be. Just like you create a business plan before you start a business, you create a business plan before you initiate a startup, you create the processes concept in your mind before you work on the process. So I hope that this point is making sense to you as to why you are conceptualizing before you start working on all the other avenues of generating the product itself, which of course boils down to the next point, that is about assuring the funding. Now, when you're talking about assuring the funding, we are basically assuring your own self or your team or your platform or your startup that you have the capital that is required to, of course, firstly generate the prototype itself, because even generating the prototype can be quite expensive. But then beyond that, once that prototype works out, let's say hypothetically, how are you going to generate the actual product, like the marketable product, the products that you're going to commercialize, that you're going to put on the forefront of every shop? How do you generate those? Because of course, the materialization of those products will require a capital investment. But how do you do that? That is what the funding is required for. That is what the funding needs to be assured about. And this can be an external funding, investors. This can be an internal funding. You are basically putting your own personal sum for the growth or the development of the product. It can be anything. It can be either of the two or something even bigger. But then it has to be there. A mechanism for the commercial development of the product, a mechanism for the capital generation for the product to be developed and delivered properly is needed to be conceptualized before anything else. After that, of course, comes the point of building the team, which is basically about generating a team that is dedicated to that product in specific, that is genuinely dedicated to that specific entity. Like if we are having this session right now, so in the platform, there are people who are working on the development of this session, from the presentation to the content to the topic to the editing to the recording to the audio, in a very dedicated manner. There are people in this team who are working dedicatedly towards this singular session. Because when every single product has people working towards it with a sense of dedication and with a sense of proper focus, is when that product works out as well. So you need to figure out who and how exactly you are going to build up the team with, and then what kind of a role you want others to assume in the development of the particular product. After that, of course, comes the point of prototyping, which is basically about generating a sample of whatever sort of a product you are coming up with. Generate a prototype of it. Now the prototype is required for multiple reasons, and we will talk about all of those reasons as we go ahead in the session today. But it is a very important stage. You cannot just say that you are directly going to launch the product in the market. You have to generate the prototype for many reasons, and all of that will be discussed in the session in just a short while. But after that comes the point of market testing. Once the prototype is generated, you have some sort of a product in your mind and, in actual existence, a service in actual existence. You test it out. You test it out with focus groups. You test it out with people who can share their actual honest reviews on how the product is or how the service is and what needs to be worked upon before you formally start the commercialization of that product. Before you professionally launch the product in the market, you have to test it beforehand. Now, these entirety of the aspects that you see on the screen right now, all together they generate a great strategy. It is not about which one is more important. It is about all of these processes being equally important in various capacities across the various phases in the timeline of the development of the product, which give you a strong and solid strategy. So now, as we walk further with the session, let us talk further about these pointers in detail as well. Firstly comes the point of developing an idea. Now, the development of an idea can look like so many things. It can look like, let's say you are sitting in a restaurant and all of a sudden an idea pops up in your mind, or you are going to the supermarket, you are carrying your cart and suddenly you see something and you think that, maybe you can do it better. Or you are perhaps just driving on the road and you face an issue. You tackle an issue with the traffic, with the road, whatever it might be, and you think that maybe something can be done about it. My point to be noted over here is never belittle the process of coming up with an idea. If you are coming up with an idea, don't belittle it. I'm not asking you to see it through all of the times. Maybe sometimes you have to say that, okay, some other idea could be better than this, but never belittle in that moment when you are coming up with the idea what it possibly can be. My suggestion to all the aspiring entrepreneurs, good or bad, whatever ideas come up in your mind, write it down somewhere. Put the pen to the paper, or even type it out in a text on your mobile phones, but have the idea written in text for your own self. So for future reference, let's say an extension to that idea comes up in your mind, you have something to refer to, or something greater comes up in your mind, you have something to correlate it to. You have to make sure that as an aspiring entrepreneur, all the ideas, all the concepts that are coming up in your mind, they can be valuable. If I told you earlier that every single idea, every single concept basically delivers a great deal or has the potential to deliver a great deal to the entire startup and the entire platform, no matter how big or small that singular process or that product might be, it means that you need to value the ideas as well. But the development of the idea also needs to be very precise. It should not be much about beating around the bush. Of course, you are researching, you are thinking of how you can improve it, what more you can do. All of that is important. But my point is, See how much you can precisely state with a singular idea in a singular sentence or even in a singular word. If you are saying that you want to bake a pizza that is better than any other pizza that is now being baked by the restaurants around the world, how would you define that to be? How would you personally say that this is the uniqueness of the pizza that you're baking? If you're coming up with a clothing brand and you're saying that your clothes are more sustainable in nature in comparison to any other sustainable development clothing line or clothing brand or something like that, tell me exactly how that is the case. How can you statistically or practically prove me that your clothing brand can be a better contributor to the environment, to the nature, in comparison than any other clothing brand which might be out there on the similar terms? If you're coming up with a brilliant idea for, let's say, some sort of a fashion line, which is just about the fashion representation, not even clothing in particular, but the fashion representation. What is it that makes you unique? What is it that makes your concept or your idea different than all the other fashion representation platforms that already exist in the world? Think of what the uniqueness of your idea is all about, and think of how can you verbalize it? How can you personally tell it to your own self, this is what is unique in your idea, this is what is unique in your concept, this is why your concept can be revolutionary and much more interesting or impacting than any other concept out there in the world, or even similar concepts out there in the world. Think of that, work on that, develop the idea based on that. Once you are able to think of what the people around the world require and you develop the idea accordingly, you are already assuring yourself a pre-existing customer base for yourself and for the product and for the startup itself. Next comes the point of researching the viability. The viability, the validity of any product is more important than you can possibly think of. At times when we say things like, every idea is important, like I just told all of you, every idea is unique, every idea is special, every idea matters that comes in your mind, you could be under the presumption that every idea that you come up with is good enough to just launch a product on, or every concept that you come up with is good enough to start working on right away, investing loads on building a team for, without any thorough understanding of why is it so important. Sometimes even if you are able to figure out what are the shortcomings of that product, just because of the quick agreement to invest in that product you came up in your mind with the concept that you came up with, you are not even thinking of what happens after. How do you exactly process the product? How do you exactly strategize its development in the longer run, let alone the eventual commercialization or testing or prototyping or investors and whatnot? Personally, you make the goal of working on that idea without even thoroughly understanding it, first of all. Now, that understanding of an idea, that understanding of a concept roots from the viability, the validity, which you can possibly research about in the marketplace. Because I'll tell you the simple reason for it. When you're launching a product, or even let's say when you're launching a startup, you are of course launching it because you are passionate about it, you are ambitious about it, it all matters, it all is really very important. I appreciate that passion. And at the same time, you know that you are launching it for the customers as well. You need the customers. You want the people out there in the market to want to buy your products, to want to check out your services, to want to hop onto your website or visit your stores from miles and miles away and see what you are doing special, what you are doing unique, what is it that you are doing better than all the other competitors out there. You want the customers to want to check your content, your product, your services, your startup out. Now, when we are talking about that, we see that there are two ends of the spectrum. The first end is about how you feel on a certain concept or an idea, and the second terminal is about how the consumers feel or can feel about a product like something what you are idealizing or you are coming up with or you are developing or you are conceptualizing. The point to be noted over here is both of these are important, how you feel about an idea and how the customers feel about an idea, but sometimes the importance of the customers feeling certainly or in a certain manner about an idea becomes even more important, and I'll give you the reason about it. When you know after a thorough research of the prototype or even just the concept of your product in the market, when you know thoroughly researching that the customers are up for the idea of it, the customers might be inclined to check out a product as whatever you are coming up with, the pizza flavor, the revolutionary pizza flavor that you're coming up with, the consumers might actually be inclined towards it. When you check it out, when you research it out with a viability in the market, like is it a viable idea, is it something that you can sustain in the longer run, is it something that makes sense, that is only when you will be able to generate an idea which not only the customers will like, but even you will be able to produce as well. Because see, honestly speaking, when you are developing the product, and we are going to talk about it later in the session today as well, you need the investors, you need a team to be built up, you need people to be there to support the development of that product in some or whatever capacity. And for even the other people, the investors, the team members, the employees, to stand up for that product, they need to believe in it as well, they need to know the viability of it, they need to be assured of the viability of it. So the checking of viability, the researching of viability beforehand, before you start prototyping, before you start commercializing a product, is essential. It is not a choice, it is needed. It is required for any product to work out properly in the market. After that comes the point of conceptualizing the process, and this is where things get very interesting but also a bit tricky, because this is where you are basically creating an idea in your mind, creating a concept in your mind, basically creating an outline in your mind about an entire book that you haven't even written yet. You are thinking of an entire summary, an entire outline of every single chapter of that book which you are willing to write, that you have not a very clear idea about at the moment. But maybe this outline is what will give you the idea across every single chapter whenever you are writing it. You will know already when you are chapter 7 or when you are on chapter 8 what happens on chapter 9. So you will be able to take the story forward to that chapter because you have prepared an outline for it. And just like that, in the process of establishing a startup, building up a startup and developing a product, the outline, the process has to be conceptualized beforehand. Whether it is about assuring the funding, or it is about prototyping, or it is about building the team, or it is about marketing and promotion, or it is about market research, or it is about testing, or it is about the commercialization itself, and so many other things. When you outline all of it to the best of your understanding and the best of your research, we can say methodology beforehand, when you prepare that outline, before you actually delve into the process of investing towards a certain product or generating capital for a certain product or commercializing a certain product, it gives you clarity. It acts like a GPS navigation system, a map basically on your phone, which gives you a direction in regards to where you need to head on what turn. Do you need to take a right or do you need to take a left? Do you need to go for that investor or this investor? Who could be a better fit for it? What kind of a segment could be a better fit as a target for this product that you're coming up with? You need to conceptualize these things beforehand. And I'm not saying that you stick to all of these things across all the processes. Chances are as you go in the actual development, things might expand on their own. You might have even more investors than you are able to think of right now. You might have even more segments in the market than you are able to think of right now. But at least have a basic idea beforehand. At least have a basic understanding beforehand in regards to where you want to steer your startup, where you want to steer that process exactly, which is of the development of a particular product. So the conceptualization as a process itself is absolutely essential and something that you cannot miss out on. But the other things that you cannot miss out on are the following: assuring the funding. Now, capital plays a huge role, I guess, across all the avenues of a startup, not just for the products, but even for something like hiring employees or building infrastructure or development of the softwares or technologies or brand image or marketing or even a proper legal document that you have to get created. If you need to basically hire somebody to do it, you need the capital for it. You need the capital to be able to do everything that you're conceptualizing. You need the capital to be able to materialize everything that you are able to think of in your mind. You need the capital to basically not just picture something but present it in the world as well. Now, especially when it comes to the product development strategy, the fundings, or should I just call it as the capital, play a huge role, because the fundings can come from so many directions. They can come from an external investor or investors that you are signing a deal with. They can come from you individually. You are putting out of your own pocket or out of the revenue of the company, the profits that it has generated, the startup basically as well. It could be a blend of the two. It could be an entirely third direction altogether. But the capital is required. The funds are required. The funds are something which you cannot just postpone or procrastinate about and say that, you have a great topic, you have a great idea, you have a great product concept in your mind. Somehow, from somewhere, the funds will come. Don't have that mentality. Have a clarity on where exactly you think the funds possibly can be generated from. It should be a positive direction. It could be a blend of multiple directions, but it should be something that you have some degree of a clarity about. At times, you genuinely have to go into all of it with a very research oriented mindset, trying to figure out what can be the avenues where the funds possibly can come from. But even for that, you require to have a specific point in your mind, etched in your mind, with thorough honesty, that yes, funds are required. Capital is something that you cannot overlook. Now, what do you do to generate it with a positive line of action, with a positive line of funding? Now, after we talk about the funding or assuring the funding, the next big thing to talk about is building the team itself. And this is where a part in the process of the development of your product comes into play, which once again, I would say, makes or breaks the product. Because if the idea can make or break the product, then according to me, building the team or the kind of team that you're building up can also make or break the product. You can hire people who are just there to be hired, who just somehow want to get in and get something done for the sake of it, without any inclination, without even any idea of what kind of a product you are working on, which can be a bit problematic. I'm not saying it will not work out. Sometimes even that works out. But it could be a bit challenging to get everybody on board and make effective contributions. Whereas on the other hand, another person that you hire, like a singular person who is actually aware of multiple avenues around the product that you're coming up with. They know not just how the pizza is baked, they also know how the pizza marketing is done. They also know how the pizza, can be made unique in comparison to the other flavors that already exist in the market. They also know how the presentation of the pizza should be done. So this kind of an individual for the brand that you're coming up with, hypothetically speaking, will be able to contribute more, firstly, secondly with an experience, and thirdly, they actually will be able to contribute something. They actually will have an inclination or a passion towards it. So try to hire people, try to build a team with those individuals who actually can do something or who want to do something for the specific product that you're coming up with. If there is a very unique idea that you come up with and you know that there are, these 3 or 4 people already existing in your startup or in your company who could be a good fit for it, try to reach out to them first of all, before anybody else, just for the formality of it. Try to see who actually fits well for the concept that you're coming up with. Try to see who actually aligns with the ideology, with the idea, with the inspiration behind the specific product or the concept of the product that you are coming up with. Then when we are talking about building up the team, another very important thing to work on is leading the team, motivating the team, being passionate, but driving that passion to encourage others as well, because building the team is only the first part of it all. The second and even the bigger part is to sustain that team, retain that team, and energize that team. Because if you want that on every single day, your team is working with full potential, with full capacity, then you have to showcase that full potential work from your side as well, from your area as well. You have to present that whatever assignments are on you, you are doing the level best to complete all of it, so that everybody who is looking up to you as you being the leader will be able to maintain a consistent passion, a consistent drive towards the process, the product, and the platform itself. After that comes the point of prototyping. Now, prototyping is very simple to understand. There is not much explanation needed because the term itself sort of defines what it is all about. This is where you are creating a sample, a reference for whatever sort of a product is there in your mind, or you are able to conceptualize. You basically want to see that if there is a concept in your mind about, let's say, a t-shirt brand, you create a few prototypes of the same t-shirt and you see, is it actually standing up to the standards that you have conceptualized in your mind, or is something else needed to be worked upon still? Is there something that looks weird in comparison to how you thought about that t-shirt to be in your mind, or is there something that can be further improved upon? But even then, beyond that, prototyping is also required for the other avenues as well. When you are pitching to an investor to invest in your product development, you have to show them what kind of a product it actually is. Are you able to present it or not? When you are reaching out for, let's say, market testing, you need to have the prototype in your hand. You need to present what exactly is the prototype that you are eventually going to develop a product based upon. So you need to have a strong development strategy for the prototype as well before you go into the actual development of the commercialized product eventually in the longer run, which of course leads to the second point, which is about commercialization itself. After you are done with prototyping, testing, researching, and finalizing that this is what the product is supposed to be, and the actual presentable product is ready with you, you are fine with it, your team is on board for it, the investors are happy with it, that is when you commercialize it. Don't hurry up the process of commercializing a product. Finalize it with the thorough research, finalize it with the best of your efforts, finalize it with a very detailed understanding of what and why that product is supposed to be in the market, and accordingly present it to the market with the best marketing strategy as well, which we have of course talked about and will talk about in the other sessions on this platform. So I hope that in this session you got to learn something insightful, interesting, and you enjoyed learning about the world of startups and entrepreneurship further in the discussion today. Now we will definitely continue our discussions on similar topics of business, entrepreneurship, and startups in our coming sessions as well. So do join us in our other sessions and keep up the good work and keep the spirit of an entrepreneur alive.
बिजनेस पाठशाला में हम आपके लिए लेकर आते हैं बेहतरीन बिजनेस आइडियाज, जिन्हें अपनाकर आप अपने व्यवसायिक सफर में कामयाबी हासिल कर सकते हैं। इसी कड़ी में आगे बढ़ते हुए आज हम आपके लिए लेकर आए हैं ऐसे स्मॉल स्केल बिजनेस आइडियाज जिनके जरिए आप अपने व्यवसायिक सफर में आसानी से सफलता प्राप्त कर सकते हैं। हमारा आज का पहला बिजनेस आइडिया है बैग मैन्युफैक्चरिंग बिजनेस। अपने लगेज, गुड्स और एक्सेसरीज को कैरी करने के लिए बैग का इस्तेमाल बच्चों से लेकर बुजुर्गों तक हर कोई करता है। अपने इस्तेमाल के हिसाब से बैग्स डिफरेंट डिजाइन्स और साइजेस में मार्केट में अवेलेबल रहते हैं। लाइनन, लेदर शीट, जिपर, पुलर, बकल, थ्रेड्स आदि से बनने वाले बैग्स, हैंड बैग्स, ट्रैवल बैग्स, सूटकेस, स्कूल कॉलेज बैग्स जैसी बहुत सी वैरायटीज में उपलब्ध रहते हैं। बुनियादी स्तर पर इस बिजनेस को शुरू करने के लिए आपको 1200 से 1500 स्क्वायर फीट एरिया, 5 से 7 किलोवाट इलेक्ट्रिसिटी और 15 से 18 मैन पावर की आवश्यकता होगी। साथ ही आपको 12 से 15 लाख की मशीन कॉस्ट और 7 से 8 लाख की वर्किंग कैपिटल की जरूरत होगी। इस बिजनेस को 19 से 23 लाख के इन्वेस्टमेंट के साथ शुरू करके आप आसानी से 10% से 15% तक प्रॉफिट कमा सकते हैं। चलते हैं अपने अगले बिजनेस आइडिया की ओर, जो है हैंडमेड ज्वेलरी। आजकल हैंडमेड ज्वेलरी काफी ट्रेंड में है और हर उम्र की महिलाओं की पसंद बनती जा रही है। कार्व्ड या पेंटेड वुड, स्टोन पीसेस, बीड्स, पर्ल्स आदि की सहायता से बनाई गई हैंडमेड ज्वेलरी मशीन्ड ज्वेलरी से ज्यादा इको फ्रेंडली होती है। इन्हें ईयररिंग, नोज पिन, रिंग्स आदि के तौर पर काफी ज्यादा इस्तेमाल किया जा रहा है, जो ये दर्शाता है कि हैंडमेड ज्वेलरी का बिजनेस करना आपके लिए कितना फायदेमंद हो सकता है। स्टार्टिंग लेवल पर इस बिजनेस को शुरू करने के लिए आपको 300 से 500 स्क्वायर फीट एरिया और 4 से 5 स्किल्ड कारीगरों की जरूरत पड़ेगी। इन्वेस्टमेंट की बात की जाए तो इस बिजनेस के लिए आपको 3 से 4 लाख की आवश्यकता होगी। इस व्यवसाय से आप 30% से 40% तक मुनाफा कमा सकते हैं। बढ़ते हैं अपने अगले बिजनेस आइडिया की ओर, जो है बीन बैग मैन्युफैक्चरिंग। फर्नीचर की लगातार बढ़ती रेंज और बदलती वैरायटीज में बीन बैग एक बेहतरीन क्रिएटिव आइडिया के तौर पर सामने आया है। बीन बैग दरअसल बड़े कुशन होते हैं जिन्हें बैठने के लिए फर्नीचर के तौर पर इस्तेमाल किया जाता है। अलग अलग आकार, रंग और डिजाइन में मिलने वाले बीन बैग बेहद हल्के होते हैं और इसी वजह से सोफे के विकल्प के रूप में तेजी से सभी के बीच में लोकप्रियता हासिल कर रहे हैं। EPS यानी एक्सपेंडेड पॉलीस्टाइरीन बीज से बने बीन बैग्स यूजर फ्रेंडली प्रोडक्ट हैं और मार्केट में इनकी डिमांड लगातार बढ़ती ही जा रही है, जिस वजह से बीन बैग मैन्युफैक्चरिंग आपके लिए एक बेहतरीन बिजनेस आइडिया साबित हो सकता है। स्मॉल स्केल पर इस बिजनेस को शुरू करने के लिए आपको 1000 स्क्वायर फीट एरिया, 2 से 3 किलोवाट पावर कनेक्शन, 4 से 6 मैन पावर और 3 से 4 लाख इन्वेस्टमेंट की जरूरत होगी। साथ ही आप इस बिजनेस से 20% से 25% तक प्रॉफिट कमा सकते हैं। अब आते हैं आज के आखिरी बिजनेस आइडिया की ओर, जो है स्टेनलेस स्टील स्क्रबर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग। स्टेनलेस स्टील स्क्रबर लगभग हर घर के किचन में इस्तेमाल किया जाने वाला क्लीनिंग प्रोडक्ट है। ये बर्तनों में लगी गंदगी को आसानी से साफ कर देता है। स्टेनलेस स्टील वायर कॉइल से बना और ब्लिस्टर कैप और कार्ड पेपर से पैक्ड स्टेनलेस स्टील स्क्रबर कप, ग्लास, प्लेट, पैन आदि बर्तनों को साफ करने के काम आता है और इस वजह से मार्केट में इसकी डिमांड लगातार बनी रहती है। अगर आप भी इस शानदार बिजनेस को शुरू करना चाहते हैं तो 1200 से 1500 स्क्वायर फीट एरिया, 4 से 5 किलोवाट पावर कनेक्शन और 3 से 4 मैन पावर के साथ इस बिजनेस को आसानी से शुरू कर सकते हैं। इस बिजनेस के लिए आपको 8 से 12 लाख के इन्वेस्टमेंट की जरूरत होगी और साथ ही आप इससे 10% से 15% प्रॉफिट कमा सकेंगे। तो ये थे आज के हमारे बिजनेस आइडियाज। फिर मिलेंगे नए और शानदार बिजनेस आइडियाज के साथ। अभी आप जूम सेशन से जुड़कर एक्सपर्ट से डायरेक्ट कनेक्ट कर सकते हैं। जूम सेशन का लिंक आपको YouTube चैट बॉक्स में मिल जाएगा। धन्यवाद।